Come along as we go back down to the White House and visit with George W. Bush, America's 43rd president. Served in office from 2001 to 2009 before entering the White House. Bush, the oldest son of George H.W. Bush, whom we spoke about before, like 2 days ago, who was the 41st president of the United States, was a two-term Republican governor of Texas. A graduate of Yale University and Harvard Business School, Bush worked in the Texas oil industry and was an owner of the Texas Rangers baseball team before becoming governor. In 2000, he won the presidency after narrowly defeating Democratic challenger Al Gore. Bush's time in office was shaped by the 9/11 2001 terrorist attack against America. In response to the attack, he declared a global war on terrorism, established the Department of Homeland Security, and authorized U.S.-led wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, Bush, the oldest of 6 children of George H.W. Bush, whose life spanned from 1929 to 2018, and Barbara Bush, whose life spanned from 1925 to 2018, was born on July 6, 1946, in New Haven, Connecticut, when his father, a former World War II naval aviator, was a student at Yale University. He was raised in Texas, where the senior Bush was an executive in the oil industry and attended high school in Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts. Bush went on to Yale, the alma mater of his father and grandfather, Prescott Bush, whose life spanned from 1895 to 1972, a banker and a U.S. Senator, and earned a degree in history in 1968. Did you know? Bush was the first son of president to become president since John Quincy Adams. That same year, with America fighting in the Vietnam War, from 1954 to 1975, Bush was accepted into the Texas Air National Guard. He trained to become a pilot and completed his active duty service in 1970. In 1973, he entered Harvard Business School and received an MBA in 1975. Bush then returned to Texas to work in the oil and gas industry and eventually started his own exploration company. On November 5th, 1977, he married Laura Welch, whose life spanned from 1946 and still alive as of the date of the recording of this, a librarian and school teacher. The couple had twin daughters, Jenna and Barbara, in 1981. In 1978, Bush ran for U.S. House of Representatives from Texas, but lost to his Democratic opponent in the general election. Afterward, he returned to his oil business, which he sold in 1986. Bush moved to Washington, D.C. to work on his father's successful 1988 presidential campaign, and the following year became an investor in the Texas Rangers baseball team. He sold his ownership stake in 1998 for $15 million. In 1994, Bush defeated Democratic incumbent Ann Richard to become governor of Texas. He was re-elected 4 years later. In summer of 1999, Bush announced his candidacy for president and campaigned as a compassionate conservative. In the 2000 election, Bush and running mate Dick Cheney, whose life spanned from 1941, and again still alive on the date of recording this, a former congressman and U.S. Defense Secretary under George H.W. Bush, who defeated Vice President Al Gore. And his running mate, U.S. Senator Joe Lieberman of Connecticut, by a margin of 271 to 266 electoral votes. Damn, that's a 5-vote difference. Though Gore won the popular vote by 48.4% to Bush's 47.9%. The 2000 elections was the fourth election in U.S. history in which the winner of the electoral votes did not carry the popular vote. Bush's first term in the White House was dominated by 9/11 terrorist attacks against America, in which nearly 3,000 people were killed, and their aftermath. The following month, a response to the attack on the United States. In response to the attacks, the United States invaded Afghanistan in an attempt to overthrow the Tibetan government, which was suspected of harboring Osama bin Laden, whose life spanned from 1957 to 2011, leader of Al-Qaeda, the organization responsible for the 9/11 attacks. The Tibetan regime was quickly toppled, however. Bin Laden was not captured for another decade. With the goal of protecting the United States from future terrorist attacks, Bush also signed the Patriot Act into law, creating the Cabinet-level Department of Homeland Security, which was officially established in November of 2002. Then in the spring of 2003, the United States invaded Iraq in order to overthrow leader Saddam Hussein, whose life spanned from 1937 to 2006, whose regime was accused of supporting international terrorist group and possessing large caches of weapons of mass destruction, or WMDs. In December of 2003, U.S. forces captured Hussein, who was later executed by Iraqi officials. However, no WMDs were ever discovered. Also, in his first term, Bush won congressional approval of widespread tax cut bills and Medicare prescription drug coverage program for seniors, signed the No Child Left Behind Act into law, allocated billions of dollars to fight HIV/AIDS around the world, created the White House Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives, and withdraw America's support of the 1997 Kyoto Protocol, which was signed by President Bill Clinton and concerned the international agreement's requirement, which hurt the U.S. economy. And which was signed by President Bill Clinton, was intended to combat worldwide global warming. Bush said he was concerned that the international agreement's requirements would hurt the U.S. economy. Thought I read that wrong. I'm sorry. Bush ran for re-election in 2004 and defeated Democratic challenger John Kerry, a U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, by a margin of 286 to 251 electoral votes, with 57, God, I cannot read today, 50.7% of the popular vote to Kerry's 48.3%. Bush enjoyed strong public approval ratings throughout much of his first term. However, during his second term, his popularity plummeted. Critics said Bush had used misleading claims about Iraq's WMDs to justification for the invasion of the Middle Eastern nation. Additionally, after Hurricane Katrina devastated America's Gulf Coast region in August of 2005, resulting in some 1,800 deaths and billions of dollars in damages, the Bush administration was widely criticized for its slow response to the disaster. A troubled economy also contributed to America's dissatisfaction with Bush. He began his presidency with a federal budget surplus. However, factors such as the enormous cost of fighting 2 wars and the broad tax cuts led the annual budget deficits starting in 2002. Then in 2008, when America experienced its worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, Congress passed a series of controversial Bush administration sponsored plans to bail out the financial industry with hundreds of billions of federal funds. Bush also lobbied unsuccessfully for a plan to replace Social Security with private retirement savings accounts. Throughout his term, Bush rarely wavered from his stance on social conservative. He made 2 nominations in the U.S. Supreme Court, both in 2005. Chief Justice John Roberts and Samuel Alito, born 1955 and 1950 respectively, and both are still alive today, at least at the date of recording this. Both regarded as judicial conservatives. Following the January 2009 presidential inauguration of Barack Obama, Bush left office as a polarizing figure. He and First Lady Laura Bush returned to Texas, where they divided their time between homes in Dallas and Crawford. In 2010, Bush released released a memoir, Decision Points, in 2010, but otherwise maintained a low national profile. And with that, I will see you all in the next one.